So, hello everyone. This is Gaurav, working at Equinox as product manager, and we are here to discuss today about the controls RBI, SEBI, certain guidelines have usually recommended to Indian banking financial sectors organization on how they should conduct their infrastructure, data, and application. So, with that, let's just begin. So, usually we
Hey,
have seen that some of the mostly attacks that have been there are on Indian BFSI domains, and those are somewhere around 250 crore of, you can say, penalty that organization had paid. And these are something could have been avoided if they would have abided to the laws, guidelines that are advocated by these agencies. So over to you, Sofas. What do
hey,
you think
thanks,
about
Gaurav. Excited to dig into this. Let's start with a bigger picture. Why would a client need all four frameworks at once? Isn't that a overkill?
Yeah, so it basically depends on industry to industry. Not all organizations need to comply to everything. So if we talk about financial sectors, they need to be more compliant to RBI frameworks. If we talk about organization in general, then they need to be compliant to DPDP, but not strictly RBI if they are non-financial, like insurance. But in the same realms, these are controls overlap as well. So even if you are supporting one of them, majority of those controls are also present in the other alliances that are there. So it's not an overkill. Definitely, we need to know which maybe compliance we need to aim for or framework we need to aim for, and what all things we need to comply in that. At the end of the day, it's all standard best practices and definitely not an overkill.
Hey, thanks, Gaurav. Gaurav, what makes you think the BFI sector uniquely vulnerable when it comes to the cloud security and compliance?
Yeah, the question was, where do we find these
I mean,
misconfiguration?
The BFSI sector uniquely vulnerable when it comes to the cloud security and compliance.
Yeah, both aspects. So, great question there, Safras. So, usually what we have seen is weak access controls are the most common ones, whether you are in non-prem infrastructure or you are in cloud. So, both aspect is very, very important when you talk about logging. Logging is also very important in terms of understanding all the real-time threat ingestion or maybe logging of the events and then understanding the problems within. And these are all, you can say, somewhere in a Venn diagram overlapping, but at the same time, the compliance is an aspect to ensure that you are like ISO 27001 or SOC 2 in terms of both automated controls that you can get from the cloud security misconfigurations, or you can say general best practices, people process technology. But when you talk about specific frameworks like IS, maybe RBI or certain guidelines. These are calling upon all the infrastructure and the application elements together, not just some things around the, you can say, the controls specific. They ensure that you have best practices from how you are having access management to data control to how you are having centralized logging, backup, time sync, so that there are kind of all the incident reported in time, and incident report also there are timelines how you have to go back to that. So you can say there are some kind of overlaps in compliance, but majorly when we talk about certain guidelines for the BFSI domain, there are some, they have called out few of the aspects like incident reporting, data management, privacy, access control, all of that to be highly regulated as
Okay, yeah. Maybe the other question is where are BFSI organization deploying their critical workloads today, and what complexity does that create, Gaurav?
Yes, so BFSI usually goes for, you can say, an on-prem environment as that is more favorable for them. That has been the case so before the advent of the cloud technology, but now the reality is to have the efficiency, they are also on the cloud today. So somewhere you can say that it's a mix of hybrid environment. They have both cloud infrastructure spanning across AWS, Azure, GCP, but it should be having the data localization only in the India region. So that's something as a mandate, but they also have significant, you can say, positioning around data centers also. Some of the infrastructure and workload that are spinning across the on-prem infrastructure as well. So currently, I would say it is a hybrid environment mostly.
Okay. From what I've seen, regulations were written only for on-premise infrastructure and don't translate cleanly to the cloud nature architectures. Gaurav, where do CISOs realize their existing tools aren't cutting it, and what triggers this awakening?
Yeah, so most of the aspect I will talk about banks first. So usually banking have a problem usually to manage the legacy systems. The patch management is not regulated. So for example, if the patch is available, how quickly they can fix it? Are there SLA defined across that third party risk assessment? So the vendors that they are using, the contractual security clauses should be reviewed. All of that is something that is not today, you can say, you can say it's kind of a significant problem today. When you talk about the hybrid infrastructure, there also, so DPDP asks you to localize all the data. So that ensures that to ensure that the transactional financial transactions that are happening are in India region, but at the same time, the main aspect of the security is towards privilege access management, and also how you define those RBACs and how you have those drills across site reliability and all those aspects. So your application is not having a downtime. At the same time, you're having all those aspects of business continuity, data protection, access risk management, controlled in those environments. When you talk about normal startups, which are usually going for the SaaS, if they are fintech, then they are heavily on the cloud and they might not have any footprint on the cloud. But the problem there is, since cloud misconfigurations are one of the biggest reason for a compliance failure today, both RBI certain guidelines. That is where I think we can, as an organization, help a lot because although it seems very, simple problem to solve, such as public S3 bucket exposed databases having exposure, security groups having access to all grids, all those things could have been avoided with a simple real-time, you can say, threat detection and response, and automated response on those, because these are critical, and you cannot wait on a normal CSPM tooling to just scan through that and maybe tell you the problem, and it gets lost in the, you can say, the amount of alerts that you see today. So the point is this: for startups, although it's usually cloud mesh configurations, that's a point of violation for these frameworks. We still need a system, both proactive system to actively detect it and remediate, auto remediate. At the same time, we also need some kind of a routine check like CSPM to ensure that some of these best practices are implemented. And that's how they both differ, the banking BFSI domain and the fintech that are starting up with the use of AI on directly SaaS platform.
Okay. And how are the BFSI firms currently approaching compliance? And why is that failing, Gaurav?
Yeah, so today, the most violations are usually around like I mentioned earlier, cloud misconfiguration, access controls, logging and monitoring gaps. So you have SIM tools where you can have a centralized login, and you need to have a 24/7 SOC available to monitor those threats and have aspects of those covered. These are the top, you can say, categories where the misconfigurations or maybe violations happens. Cloud misconfigurations, IAM issues, and logging and monitoring. The maybe you can say second category would be related to patch management, delay in incident response. That is something highly regulated in RBI certain guidelines and also SEBI. So they call for within 6 hours response time, and for DPDP Act, it's more like reasonable amount of time. It's not specific on how much, yeah, how quickly you need to respond to an incident. But when it comes to RBI, it's basically maybe you can say less than 48 hours. So you need to report back to them. So those are also a violation. Vendor risk. So that vendor risk, third party risk is something sometimes always missed. So that is also important. And the tier three is something which is always comes on the DevSecOps. So while you're building these applications in the CI/CD platform, there also could be a gap. So CNAP should also consider the shift left security aspect. The data protection also is surprisingly not catered to. Data protection, by that I mean appropriately labeling these data of which are important of business criticality, or maybe you can also mention which are PII and PHI. Based on that, you can ensure that those data protection are there. There should be data protection tool like semantic sort of purview that can actually help you in that aspect. But we also provide that unified coverage and DR testing, so disaster recovery. Whatever we have talked about, Equinox has a one-stop solution across everything, where you get the unified view, whether it is related to cloud misconfigurations, RBAC, access control, centralized logging, or whether it is related to patch management or third-party risk assessment, DevSecOps, or even if you want a kind of a DSPM solution for data protection, all of that is covered through Equinox one-stop solution.
Good, good. Beyond these gaps, these technology gaps. There are like, I mean, what are the other organizational challenges you foresee? And but for me, I have seen a lot of siloed ownership, like security teams in a separate, working separately, DPOs, and the payment teams. They barely speaking each other. So, do you find anything like this?
Um, it seems like you are speaking that from the experience, because that's also something other than the technical aspect I would wanted to point out, that usually within just one DevSecOps, you have more than 40 tools just to cover four major categories like SAST, DAST, IAC, maybe secret scan. These four categories have more than 40 tools, or maybe more than that, to support. And these tools are not interoperable. So there are siloed environment created, siloed ownership gets created, and there is no contextual analysis in the shift left approach. We solve that problem. When you go to the cloud, you have to support AWS, Azure, GCP, Oracle, all of that. Good thing is there are a lot of CNAP vendors that support. Not so good thing is they do not bring in the perspective of DevSecOps also in that. We do. Uh, and also the aspect of, you can say, AI security now coming to the fore. We need to also understand that the CNAP has just got extended to a new playground called AI, and that also should be considered and catered to within the current CNAP scope. And that is something we are seeing, that different AI security tools are getting created, that just creating more silos. Although some would argue that usually I cannot have a one solution for a unified view across everything. Maybe it's not best in the market, but reality is when you have multiple tools, silos gets created, contextual analysis gets missed, and a lot of times there is a delay in turnaround time, response time. There are because of the human error, of course, and because of the, you can say, a lot of SLAs gets breached, violations happens, and those things could have been prevented with a unified view. So if an organization is actually looking for having best ROI, efficient CapEx, OpEx, then they should go for a uniform visibility across their on-prem and cloud infrastructure, which is where Equinox really shines.
Thanks, Gaurav. So yeah, you specified about the how Equinox, plays, for these things. But can you be specific on BFSI, environment for the compliance and requirements and the multiple frameworks and the cloud environments across?
Yeah, sure. So I'll talk about that. So when you talk about maybe let's talk about RBI, financial system security. They totally focus on banking sectors, and the data localization is very strict, which means that the entire data should stay within India. And the incident reporting time should be less than 6 hours. So you should report if the incident happens. If you do not, that's a violation, that's a breach, and you can get penalized for that. The SBOM aspect sometimes come in implicit, so you might not see that, but SBOM is also something that gets inherently important. And cloud part, it's heavily regulated. So if you are at cloud and if you are having misconfigurations, such as, let's suppose you are not doing, let's understand from the user access perspective. If you're not having privilege access management, and if you're having, maybe if you're not having any kind of a user control on the accesses that they can get, you can get penalized. If you don't have log retention for more than 180 days minimum, then you can get penalized. You need to record all the events more than 180 days at least. When it comes to data protection, if your data is not governed and PHI information is leaking to the third parties and there is no governance around that, you will be penalized. When it comes to DPDP, however, this is a little bit different from the RBI framework. So it usually talks about just the data privacy, and the data localization is conditional. So you can send the data beyond probably India also, but except certain countries. That's a mandate given in DPDP. And if there is a violation, it's not 6 hours. It's a reasonable time that you need to get back to the DPDP and report there, but that should be done. Now, there are cloud related aspects that is allowed. You can use all the cloud, but at the same time, they should have enough safety controls. So if you see RBI and DPDP, for the cloud aspect, RBI is more stricter in compared to DPDP for cloud, but DPDP is also asking for a safety guardrails. So in a way, they both are not totally independent of each other. When we talk about SEBI is more in the aspects of the how you have your infrastructure and how you have your application. So there has to be a kind of a auditing across all those infrastructure and application aspect. Now, when you talk about data localization, it's very strict, and it always talks about critical infrastructure. So the likes of NSE and PCI, all of them falls in this domain. And the incident reporting is not 6 hours; it's immediate. There is no delay that should happen in that. Otherwise, you'll be violating this. And the cloud environment, it's controlled, but mostly what we have seen is they are mostly on premises. Now, the problem with the on premises is the legacy tools might not have enough coverage to deal with the today's change in AI aspect, and which is where we also come in. For on-prem infrastructure, our AI security is second to none. And that is where we say that all of these IIDA, DIA, maybe PCI, all of them are talking about best practices across your cloud or on-prem infrastructure, how you ensure that the application data protection happens, how you can have a centralized logging and monitoring, how you can also have privilege access management, incident reporting catered to. All of that is something a kind of a best practices, and they might not be totally correlated, but definitely they overlap. So it all depends on which industry you belong to and what frameworks you are aiming for. Then, based on that, your controls differ. But at the same time, at the end of the day, if you want a holistic security, there is a you can say a good benefit in having all of these frameworks adopted if you are specifically BFSI domain. Does that sounds good? Does it make sense?
That explains. Yeah. Just wonder, getting to know the strictest controls from BFSI deployments, Gaurav. How do you're going to sequence the rollout so that we can minimize the risk?
Yes. Basically, what we need to do is a uniform view is very important. Like you earlier mentioned, the problem is siloed approach. In the siloed approach, if you can have a lot of sync, we have always seen security as something that has been inhibitor in your business value growth, and we do not want that. And today it cannot even do that because with AI the gap between go to market and your idea conception has narrowed down further, which means that you can ship application faster, you can create business value faster, and in doing so you cannot have a security as a hurdle there. So to stitch that gap across you can say various uh, different infrastructure, whether it is cloud on-prem, whether it is different applications like Kubernetes VM, whether it is compliance frameworks across RDI, IIDAA, DAI, or PCI, or maybe SOC 2, ISO. You need to have one uniform platform which can cover all of those things, whether it is security, whether it is cloud security, whether it is AI security, all of that. If you have one platform, think of the possibilities of how efficiently you can manage everything, how efficiently you can get to the issue quickly, and how efficiently you can achieve all of these things just with one tool. So the problem that was there earlier with 40 or 50 plus tools in DevSecOps, you do not have to worry with that. Even if you use that today, you can integrate that to Equinox and still get a uniform visibility. And the cloud security, AI security is supported regardless. It's truly on premises. It's truly air gapped environment. So you do not need any internet connectivity. And that's where we say that our Equinox platform could provide you a single stop solution for catering to all the requirements around as SEBI, RBI, PCI, DPDPA Act compliant solution and help you achieve those frameworks compliance. So this is where we differentiate. This is where we provide value, and we have done that for multiple government institutions, financial sectors, in on-premises environment, stitching all that gap and ensuring that they have better ROI from the platform.
Thank you. Uh, we know that BFSI audits are very, strict. And how have the, audit experience changed after Equinox deployment? What do you feel about?
Yeah, so it's significantly something that we have done better. So basically, you can consider that with Equinox, you will be able to have a good report generated. Kind of, you can also have compliances framework specific report generated across different infrastructure that you have. So, for example, if you have multiple compliances support that you would require, you can just generate a report to see in one shot how you are complying to these. At the same time, if you want a detailed specific report for, let's suppose, ISO, SOC 2, PCI, you can just have a detailed report according to that generated. And that becomes your, you can say, auditing and proof of point also for the auditors. You can just share it with them and they will be able to understand that, okay, you are doing this regularly, you're conforming to this regularly, and you have a report that can back all those proof points, and you can also defend on those aspects. And if there are some kind of violations, you will be notified directly through Slack, Jira, whatever means of communication method that you want to adopt. You can also have a real-time threat detection and prevention. You can have an inline mitigation for the critical issues. And there are various organizations that are leveraging us just for that. So in achieving those compliances, you can have dashboards, reports as a proof points, data retention that we do as a proof points, centralized logging as a proof points that you are auditing all those scenarios. And if there are any misconfigurations, you'll be notified so that you can fix those issues and still be compliant to those frameworks. So that's how we have helped. in the organization achieve these frameworks, and it has been very easy for them to, you can say, if not have them comply to everything, but have a 80% coverage across all those frameworks, and rest 20% is more like the people and the process that they can always, internally group up and then provide a solution for. But 80% of the things which can be automated, we have done that for the cloud and on-prem infrastructure. The rest process related manual controls can also be uploaded on the platform, and you can provide a holistic view to the auditors saying this is how have we can comply to those frameworks. So it has been very easy basically for them.
Okay. And what kind of measurable outcomes for BFSI clients seeing after 90 days of Canon's deployment, maybe?
So first problem that all of them, you can say, faces are how do we have a unified view? Unified view is very important across the entire infrastructure, because then you can do auditing and governance on top of your VMs that are there, your cloud infrastructure that are there. So that is the first aspect. Unified visibility across your DevSecOps, across issues across your DevSecOps and cloud security and AI security together. The second thing is operationalizing aspect. So we have workflows automation that can actually help you to auto ticket few things, auto assign issues to the respective owners. And that streamlines everything, because the moment you have a kind of a platform that is responsive enough to reach out to the respective owners for a fix, that's something an easy operation. So we do not just focus on how you can get the uniformed view, but also how you can automate the workflows to, just make it a little bit more efficient in the usage. And then we have an AI assisted remediation, AI assisted remediation assistance. All of that goes a long way for us to understand the issue and fix those issues also. So you can say from the point of onboarding and uniform visibility, the operationalization aspect, workflow automation aspect also comes in very handy. And it's just, you can say, a lot of problems with the siloed tools and different teams that just goes into non-problem. And then they focus more on how they can do better remediation, better operation on the entire visibility that they get, on entire issues that they see across the entire software development lifecycle. So it really helps a lot in that aspect.
Okay. And what do you feel like now long-term strategically, are boards actually changing their posture on cloud migration?
Cloud migration is something that has always been debatable in the terms of business continuity, in terms of sometimes outage, or maybe in terms of sometimes you can talk about maybe, and you might be getting this from multiple other customers also, that they have been using AWS, they have been using Azure, but they still see downtime sometimes, even after paying huge sum of money. But the national security also is sometimes kicks in and say that if it is not about cost, I need the highly regulated environment, which is where everybody favors the on-prem infrastructure. So the reality is hybrid infrastructure is where we live in today, and everybody will be leveraging cloud for the advancement, research, analysis, and have the best efficient software out there. But at the same time, they will continue to use on-prem as well for some critical applications and infrastructure. So this is the world where we live in, and probably hybrid is the true environment where you can say that you need to stitch properly to give a the holistic view for the customers to go through these compliances and frameworks conformance easily. Otherwise, it will be always a pain if your CNAP only caters to on-prem, or if it only caters to cloud. By the way, there are not many on-prem CNAP available today. We are among the ones who provide this uniform visibility. But at the same time, I think hybrid is the real reality to them.
Thanks, Gaurav. You have given a lot of inner information about the compliance. Just some final thoughts. What is your key messages to the CISOs who is watching today?
Yeah, so I think one thing that I would really want to recommend is even though one tool cannot solve all the problems and you would not want to put all the eggs in one basket, but consider from the perspective of ROI, consider from the perspective of the pain points. For example, DevSecOps is itself in a fragmented view, an area where you have most of the tools. So what if you can bring about the visibility in just DevSecOps? And what if you have one tool to bring about visibility in the multi-cloud aspect? What if you have one tool to cater to all these things in on-prem? So what happens there is you focus more on the operations aspect, the fixing the issue aspect, rather than you can say managing, maintaining these tools, go into the renewal cycle, poke holes and make the solution better as to how you would require that for your organization. You do not have to travel that you can say journey for every tools that you use. Every tool will have some issues, but you do not necessarily need to have 10 tools and pay hefty amounts and go through renewal cycles and do a lot of work and not work on actual problem which is fixing the issue. With advent of AI, the like I said, the gap between the go to market to what applications pace, development pace has been scaled up these days. We need to match more on the aspect of ease of security. And ease of security can only happen when you focus more on operationalization of the aspect rather than managing and maintaining the tools aspect. So that's what my humble opinion is. But at the same time, there can be different opinions, and we would love to get in a call and understand different perspective and see how we can help the customers there.
I
Thank
think,
you.
thank Gaurav. I think we have covered, more on the compliance part, and I think you made it very clear, what are the things can be, achieved, and through Equinox also, what are the some of the aspects, we can clear it off. So thank you so much for your time,
Thank
and
you so much,
definitely
Sirfaj,
that's
for
all I
hosting,
have.
and thank you for sharing valuable inputs and looking forward to see any engagements that are there. Thank you so much.